found a tube, and the minute I opened it, the smell transported me through time.
This one's wife. Let's talk about Archie. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. TMZ published an article very recently. It was a favourable article about the Sussexes, and it showed a range of photographs. I covered this in On the Beach, a video that I published yesterday. In essence, it was same old, same old. This one's wife had made it known that she would be attending the beach, or that she had some beach photographs to share, and TMZ duly published them. The pictures show this one's wife, Harry, and other people on a beach. And as I explained in yesterday's video, they were there attending a surf school that Archie was participating in. On the face of it, it's actually quite a mundane action. Many families engage in this, but don't court publicity. And I took the piss out of it by telling you more about Neville Shute's publication, On the Beach, than I did in relation to the actual photographs themselves. The reason being, ultimately, I wanted to convey the mundanity of what this one's wife is doing, both in terms of trying to elevate an ordinary event into something that is special, driven, of course, by the mindset of her narcissism, whereby everything that she does in her world is special, but also to demonstrate, once again, the rinse and repeat approach of this one's wife and the fact that it isn't anything particularly major. That is the level that she has been reduced to, and therefore it was instructive in demonstrating the repetitive nature of her attention-seeking narcissism, allied with the fact that there really isn't much left for her to try and show you. And that was that. I did make mention of the fact that one of the pictures appeared to show Archie. You can see the TMZ picture on your screen now, which shows old chicken legs on the right-hand side, walking along with her summer hat on and an oversized blouse, a lady with an outstretched hand, possibly a surf instructor or somebody involved with the Surf Happens surfing school, and what would appear to be Archie running towards, presumably, the sea, wearing a gold-coloured t-shirt and surfing gear underneath, his face cut off from the picture, naturally because of the law in relation to the publication of a minor's identity and image without the express permission of the parents. There is, of course, no actual confirmation that that is Archie, but given the relative proximity to this one's wife, the fact that her and Harry were apparently there because he was participating in a surf school, on the balance of probabilities, it's likely to be him. As I state, there was no precise confirmation in the caption to the picture to say Archie races towards the surf, but given the facts as described, on the balance of probabilities, one would conclude that it's more likely to be him than it isn't. With the explanation that Archie was attending the surf school and what looked to be a photograph of him, minus his face, it was reasonable to conclude that he was there. There then appeared two more photographs, which you can see on your screen. It shows the boy that is purportedly Archie lying on the ground on the sand. He is leaning on his left arm, and then the second picture shows him looking skyward. There are other children around. They are looking towards the camera. Some are looking at the ground. Some are looking off to the side. Some of the children's faces have been blurred as a consequence of presumably the fact that their parents have not consented to their images being used. And as you can see, the other children, their parents must have agreed that Surf Happens could use these images, which you can see. Accordingly, these two images appeared, and I posted them on my X account, basically commenting, looks like Archie's enjoying some breakdancing after the surfing. There then followed, across my channel, or rather my platform on X, but also I saw elsewhere, two main questions that came about. The first was, why is Archie wearing a different coloured t-shirt to all of the other children? There is the dominant wearing of lime green, a couple wearing blue, and a couple wearing white. Why is he the only one wearing gold? And secondly, based upon the two photographs, there was the suggestion that this was photoshopped and that he had been inserted into the picture, that he looked much larger than the other children, that his shadow didn't match his body. And then the third observation was that he looks, for want of a better description, special, or that there's something wrong with him. Well, let's analyse those questions as part of the necessity of the application of going to the evidence and critical thinking, something which I expressly identify as hugely important time and time again. Why is this so important? Well, first of all, when it comes to dealing with narcissists, you need to go to the evidence, because the evidence allows you to preserve your sanity, reduce your emotional thinking, and ultimately can allow you to achieve victory over the narcissist in certain situations. Because, as I explained in my video, give the narcissist enough rope, invariably lesser and mid-range narcissists create an evidential trail which you can exploit. Accordingly, rather than being governed by emotional thinking and speculation, going to the evidence serves you magnificently in relation to potentially an ongoing battle with the narcissist, court for instance, or as part of escaping the narcissist and applying the principles of GOSO, getting out and staying out. Going to the evidence is absolutely fundamental. And time again, I've assisted people through the application of the evidence where it has resulted in them getting the right result and feeling much better about circumstances. Secondly, the application of critical thinking and going to the evidence is not just extremely useful with regard to dealing with narcissism, it's extremely useful in navigating your way through the world. For instance, dealing with misinformation and disinformation. Thirdly, as I have explained before, there is nothing more that this one's wife and Harry would like than their critics to be silenced. And one way they do this is by talking about online safety, online interactions, and essentially the provision of misinformation and disinformation. And where people fail to apply critical thinking and go to the evidence, they are walking straight into a trap. They are giving this one's wife and Harry the opportunity to get what they want. Because the more that people peddle nonsense about them, the easier it becomes for the Sussexes to persuade the arbiters of what is posted to take their side, rather than those that might actually genuinely be uncovering evidence of their wrongdoing or poor behaviours. The more that people keep speculating and doing so in a way which isn't sustainable, the easier it becomes for the Sussexes to silence people. And time again, I've warned against this. So 3 questions arose. Why is Archie the only one wearing gold? He's been photoshopped into the image, and he looks like there's something wrong with him. Well, let's have a look at those questions. In relation to the question about why is he the only one wearing gold, well, that is a fair observation, because in the picture that you can see, he is the only one wearing gold. And this, of course, then caused people to make a leap of logic, which was along the lines of, well, this is so Archie stands out so he can be identified in the photographs. Okay, well, it's a possibility, but perhaps it's more likely, given that there are a range of different colours, at least you can see in this picture, white, blue, lime green and gold, that perhaps the children have been classified into age groups or ability groups, which is quite common. Indeed, that appears to have been the case, because as per this clip that you're going to see, there are plenty of other children who attended Surf Happens who were wearing gold also. that addresses the question of why Archie has a different coloured t-shirt. He does, but other children had the same colour as him. And as I explained, this was likely as a consequence of delineation along the lines of age and or ability group, and therefore nothing more turns on it than that. What about the question of it being photoshopped? Well, it's not unreasonable to perhaps think that's the case. After all, there have been numerous occasions where this one's wife has posted pictures which cause people to think that's somewhat untoward. We have seen, for instance, the picture of where the children were purportedly running to greet their parents, which was all over the place with regard to errors which many people had analysed. And therefore, it appears to have been the case that this one's wife has engaged in the process of photoshopping in the past. Doesn't mean that every photograph that she releases is. And of course, there is a propensity for people to try and see that there is photoshopping going on, when in actual fact there is not. But what about the two images that you saw earlier? Has Archie been photoshopped into them? Well, the answer is no. First of all, those pictures came from Surf Happens. So it wasn't released by this one's wife. But perhaps she gave them the images to release. Well, it's a possibility, albeit it's starting to stretch credibility. But what demonstrates the fact that they weren't photoshopped images is this. Yes, the two photographs of Archie lying on the floor were stills taken from a very short clip that was released by Surf Happens on their Instagram account, which starts off showing a man in a red t-shirt waving at the camera. As it then pans around, shows a lady in the background staring at her phone, some other individuals, possibly volunteers and parents, and people still underneath a gazebo, most likely instructors and helpers. And then it pans round very quickly to show the children in their different coloured t-shirts, with the boy that we believe is Archie lying on the floor. And as the camera moves along, when the camera first reaches him, he's lying on his stomach, and as it comes along, he rolls over. And the children appear to be jumping up and down. It then cuts to an alternative picture of 4 children gathered around some microphone. And there we have it. Accordingly, the images can't be photoshopped because they weren't photographs. They were taken from a video. Now, there'd be some that would say, well, has the video been manipulated to include him? Again, that strikes me as rather a long shot. I know one individual, they claimed that the image was photoshopped. When I pointed out that it wasn't, they then shifted to saying, well, maybe the video is manipulated. In other words, they just can't accept that it might be a legitimate image, that may well be the boy who is Archie and that he's rolling around in the sand. But to my mind, that is not a photoshopped image. Which then causes us to turn to the next point, which is a number of individuals across social media raise the point, what's wrong with him? He seems special. And others suggested that he's autistic. Quite astonishing, the number of clinicians that are able to make a diagnosis from just 2 photographs, or, if they happened upon it, a 2-second video clip. As you know, I'm no defender of the Sussexes, regularly criticising their behaviours as I analyse their relationship as part of the narcissistic dynamic between narcissist and victim. But what I do is deal in evidence. And the fact is that individuals, and there were many of them across social media, who stated that the photographs or the video clip of Archie rolling in the sand somehow demonstrates that he is autistic, that he's somehow special needs, or there's something wrong with him, is quite frankly ridiculous. It has been mooted previously that there may be some sort of diagnosis associated with Archie. You'll recall that when the pictures were taken at Disneyland, some were suggesting that that showed that he perhaps was autistic, and people provided various theories. Again, you can't make such a determination just from those pictures. Now, when it comes to this one's wife, we are able to interpret her behaviours in short clips and indeed longer clips because we already know that she is a narcissist. How do we know that? Because there is a mass of material out there that I analysed years ago and continue to analyse that demonstrates what she is. Whilst there's been no clinical face-to-face interview with her, which, if there was, she certainly wouldn't admit to being a narcissist. But the fact is, there is a mass of material from interviews, from reports, from film footage of her behaviour, from what she said about herself, from things that she's talked about in interviews. There's lots and lots of material that supports the fact that she is a narcissist. And therefore, having established that she is a narcissist based upon this mass of evidence, one can then interpret the behaviours that we see, even in short clips, as against the prism of her narcissism. Because, as you know, everything that she does when it comes to dealing with other people is driven by her narcissism. When it comes to Archie, there isn't a wealth of material to make any form of diagnosis, and therefore one can't interpret his behaviour in the course of 2 photographs or a 2-second clip. It might be a child having a temper tantrum. It might be a child just enjoying playing in the sand. It might be a child who is engaging in activity. Perhaps he's been told to do some silly dance or such like. It might be the case that he just enjoys lying on the floor. It might be the case that he'd fallen over and was about to right himself. There's a multitude of explanations. But the whole point is to point out that once again, a significant section of people immediately jump on this material to suggest that he's autistic or there's something wrong with him. You simply cannot make that assessment from 2 photographs and or a short piece of footage. You can't. And once again, doing so is not only ridiculous, but it allows the Sussexes and their supporters to turn round and say, look at that. See how many of them are making this assumption. They're nuts. They're lunatics. And therefore, it goes against the general cause that has been established with regard to holding the Sussexes to accountability. If you keep scoring own goals in this way, you shred your credibility. And when it's necessary to hold the Sussexes to account, your credibility is important in so doing. And if you've shat all over it by making baseless accusations formed out of looking at 2 photographs or a small piece of footage or conspiracy theories, then you've got a problem. Furthermore, as I've already mentioned, and I'll briefly repeat it, by continuing in such behaviour, what you're doing is giving the Sussexes a free pass to say, look at how they behave. Is it any wonder that we want to protect our children? Is it any wonder that we want these voices shut down? Look at the bullying, look at the harassment that goes on, silence them. And in so doing, there is a danger that the individuals that genuinely hold them to account, based upon evidence, asking the pertinent questions, the truth seekers amongst the mainstream media and the YouTubers, some of whom I've mentioned by name recently, get swept up in that and find themselves silenced. This is important because it's once again demonstrating the necessity of going to the evidence and also the danger of putting out baseless assumptions as a consequence of wanting to reaffirm a set belief about the Sussexes. Yes, they tell lies. Yes, this one's wife is a narcissist. Yes, she revises history. Yes, she's photoshopped pictures. But not every picture is going to be photoshopped. Not every instance is going to be telling a lie. And therefore, it's important to evaluate and to be discerning before such allegations are levelled to avoid allowing this one's wife and Harry a free shot at goal. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching.